Following Russian President Vladimir Putin's order to invade Ukraine on February 24, multinational corporations have been forced to reconsider their ties with Russia. Some, such as McDonald's, PepsiCo, and Shell, had long-standing relationships with the country and were faced with the task of untangling complicated deals. Many Western companies have begun to unwind their investments, close stores, and halt sales in Russia in response to investor and consumer pressure. Here are some of the decisions announced by companies. Nestlé said it was halting sales of the vast majority of its pre-war volume in Russia, including pet food, coffee, and candy sold under the KitKat and Nesquik brands. It had already suspended non-essential imports and exports into and out of Russia, as well as advertising and capital investment. British American Tobacco announced the closure of its Russian operations. The cigarette manufacturer, Philip Morris, has halted planned investments and will reduce manufacturing in Russia. Fast Retailing, the Japanese clothing company that owns Uniqlo, has announced that it will cease operations in Russia. Tadashi Yanai, the company's CEO, was chastised after telling an interviewer that its stores would continue to sell clothes in Russia. Unilever, the owner of brands such as Dove and Sunsilk, has halted imports and exports. So did IKEA, though it will continue to operate its major shopping center chain, Mega, in Russia to ensure customers have access to basic necessities. TJX, the parent company of TJ Maxx and Marshalls, has promised to sell its stake in Familia, a Russian off-price retailer with over 400 stores. H&M, which had approximately 170 stores in Russia, and Nike, which had approximately 116 stores, both paused sales. Canada Goose, headquartered in Toronto, will discontinue wholesale and e-commerce sales to Russia. Adidas announced that it would suspend sales in Russia, resulting in a 1% decrease in revenue growth this year. The company operates approximately 500 stores in Russia and the former Soviet Union. Shell is exiting its joint ventures with Gazprom, the Russian natural gas conglomerate. BP will sell nearly 20% of its stake in Rosneft, the Russian state-owned oil company. ExxonMobil will withdraw from a large oil and natural gas project. Société Générale, France's third-largest bank, announced the sale of its controlling stake in Rosbank, a Moscow-based lender, for €3.1 billion, $3.3 billion. Deutsche Bank stated that it was in the process of winding down our remaining business, and was assisting its clients in reducing their operations in the country. Goldman Sachs is winding down its business in Russia in accordance with regulatory and licensing requirements, the company says. It was the country's first major American bank to leave. JP Morgan Chase, the largest bank in the United States, made an announcement hours later. Western Union's operations in Russia and Belarus will be halted. The consulting firm Bain stated that it would not work with any Russian companies and had implemented a policy in 2020 to not work for the Russian government at any level, central, state, or departmental. McKinsey & Company announced that it would not take on new work in Russia, would cease working for state-owned entities, and would no longer serve any government entity in Russia. Boston Consulting Group will not take on any new clients in Russia and has begun to wind down work where possible and will not take on any new work, according to the firm. According to McKinsey and Boston Consulting Group, they have no contracts with the central government. Cards issued by Russian banks for American Express, MasterCard, and Visa will not work in other countries, and cards issued elsewhere will not work for purchases in Russia. Citigroup, which employs approximately 3,000 people in Russia, announced that it would expand the scope of its exit from the country after previously stating that it would assess its operations there. Citi's consumer division in Russia was already running limited operations, and the business is now for sale as part of a broader exit from international markets announced last year. Its withdrawal includes the elimination of additional lines of business as well as the cessation of new business and client solicitation. The country's Big Four accounting firms, Deloitte, EY, KPMG, and PwC, are leaving. Heineken announced its exit from Russia. That announcement came about 3 weeks after it announced that it would stop producing, advertising, and selling Heineken products in the country. Restaurant Brands International, which owns Burger King, is discontinuing corporate support for the approximately 800 locations in Russia operated by local franchisees, and will not approve any additional investment or expansion. Mars, the company behind M&M's and Snickers, has halted new investments in Russia. Little Caesars is suspending all operations at franchised Russian locations. Carlsberg, the world's third-largest brewer, announced a halt in investments and the discontinuation of sales of its flagship beer brand in Russia. Baltika Breweries, based in St. Petersburg, will be run as a separate business within the Carlsberg Group. Heineken announced that it would cease producing, advertising, and selling beer in Russia. McDonald's announced a temporary closure of its nearly 850 locations in Russia, as well as a halt in operations. Starbucks announced the closure of all of its stores in Russia, which are owned and operated by the Kuwaiti conglomerate Al-Shaya Group. PepsiCo announced that it would no longer sell soda in Russia, but would continue to manufacture dairy and baby food products there as part of a humanitarian effort. Yum Brands is closing 70 company-owned KFC locations and all 50 franchised Pizza Hut locations.